Good evening, Pisces. Welcome to your reading for the rest of June. I hope you're doing well. So, Pisces, let's go ahead and see what's coming through for you. I need to be honest, you didn't just stumble onto this. Something inside you already knows why you're here, and whatever part of you recognized this message before you even pressed play, that's the part of you I'm speaking to right now. There's a stirring in you. It's been there for a while. Not loud, not dramatic, but persistent, like something beneath the surface of your life has been slowly rearranging itself without asking your permission, and you've felt it. Maybe you couldn't name it, maybe you tried to ignore it, but it kept nudging you, kept pulling your attention towards something you couldn't quite see yet. That's what brought you here. Not coincidence, not the algorithm. Something far older and far more intentional than that. I want you to take a breath right now, a real one. Let your shoulders drop, let your jaw unclench. Because what's coming through for you today is unlike anything I've felt in a very, very long time, and I need you to be open enough to receive it. This isn't just another message. This is the kind of thing that stops you mid-sentence in a conversation 3 weeks from now because you suddenly realize it was true. This is the kind of thing that rewrites the way you understand your own story. And I don't say that to build suspense or to make this feel bigger than it is. I say it because what I'm picking up on is genuinely that significant. You are standing at the edge of something and you don't even fully realize how close you are. Let me tell you what I'm sensing. There's been a long chapter of your life, and I mean long, not weeks, not months, but something that stretches back further than you'd probably want to admit, where you've been carrying a weight that wasn't entirely yours. You picked it up somewhere along the way. Maybe someone handed it to you and called it love. Maybe it was wrapped in obligation or guilt or loyalty, and because you're the kind of person who doesn't walk away easily, you held on to it. You made room for it inside yourself. You adjusted your posture, your plans, your expectations, your sense of what was possible, all to accommodate something that was never supposed to stay this long. And you've been so used to carrying it that you almost forgot what you felt like without it. Almost, but not completely. Because deep down, even on your most exhausted days, there was always a small, stubborn flicker inside you that whispered, "This isn't all there is." That flicker is what's about to become a fire. I don't mean that in a destructive way. I mean it in the way that a single candle can light an entire room when everything else goes dark. What's coming for you isn't chaos, it's clarity. The kind of clarity that doesn't arrive gently, though. It arrives like a sudden gust of wind that blows every loose paper off your desk and forces you to see what was underneath all along. You're going to be shaken, yes, but not broken. There's an enormous difference between those two things, and your spirit already knows which one this is. Here's what I find remarkable about you, and I want to say this carefully because I don't think you hear it often enough. You have an extraordinary capacity to hold space for others while quietly falling apart yourself. You've done it so many times that it's become second nature. Someone comes to you in crisis, and you show up. Someone needs advice, comfort, reassurance, a steady voice, and there you are, offering it freely, as if your own heart isn't aching too. But here's the part you've never let yourself fully acknowledge. That pattern didn't just cost you energy. It cost you years. It cost you opportunities. It cost you relationships that might have worked if you hadn't been so busy pouring into someone else's emptiness. And the hardest part, the part that stings the most, is that many of the people you gave so much to never even noticed what it took from you. Not because they were cruel, but because you made it look so effortless that they believed it was. That era is closing. I feel it shutting like a heavy door behind you, not with anger, not with resentment, but with a kind of quiet, sacred finality. You are being moved into a space where your giving is no longer one directional, where the love you put out actually comes back, where your kindness isn't mistaken for weakness or taken as an open invitation to take more than what's fair. And the news that's approaching, the thing that's going to shake the foundation of what you thought your life was building toward, is directly connected to this shift. It's as if the universe has been watching you pour from an almost empty cup for far too long, and it has finally decided to intervene. Not subtly, not politely, but with something so undeniable that you won't be able to talk yourself out of it or convince yourself it's not real. I want to get specific here because I feel like there's something that needs to be named. There's a situation, or maybe it's a person, maybe it's a decision you've been circling around for a while that you've been keeping at arm's length. You haven't committed to it fully, and you haven't walked away from it either. You've been hovering in this in-between place, partly because you're afraid of what choosing would mean, and partly because some part of you has been waiting for a sign, something to tell you which direction to move. Something to confirm what your gut has been saying, but your mind keeps overriding. I want you to hear me when I say this. That confirmation is coming. And it's not going to be subtle. It's going to be the kind of thing that removes all ambiguity, all second guessing, all of those exhausting mental loops you've been running. When it lands, you'll know. You won't need to analyze it. You won't need to ask anyone else what they think. You'll just know. But here's the part that might surprise you. The confirmation isn't going to look the way you expected. You've probably been imagining it as something soft, a gentle nudge, a warm feeling, a quiet moment of peace. And while peace will absolutely come, it's going to arrive on the other side of something that initially feels uncomfortable, maybe even jarring, because the truth that's being revealed to you isn't just about what's ahead, it's about what's been hidden. There are things you weren't told, things that were kept from you, not necessarily with malicious intent, but things that were withheld because someone didn't trust you with the full picture. And when those things surface, and they will, your first reaction might be anger, it might be hurt, it might be a deep bone-level exhaustion that comes from realizing you were making decisions based on incomplete information. Let yourself feel whatever comes up. Don't rush past it. Don't spiritual bypass it. Don't immediately try to forgive before you've even finished processing. You're allowed to sit in the mess of it for a moment. That's not weakness. That's honesty. What I find so powerful about your energy right now is that even as I describe this, even as I talk about hidden truths and uncomfortable revelations, there's a part of you that isn't afraid. There's a steadiness in you that I don't think you give yourself enough credit for. You've survived things that would have flattened most people. Not just survived, you came through them with your compassion intact, with your ability to love still functioning, with your sense of humor still flickering in the dark. That's not ordinary resilience. That's something forged, something earned. And it's exactly that quality in you that's going to carry you through what's coming next, not just intact, but transformed. Let me talk about this transformation for a moment because it's layered in a way that I want to unpack carefully. The first layer is external. Something in your physical world is going to shift. It could be financial, it could be relational, it could be geographic, it could be something tied to your work, your home, your daily structure. I'm not going to pretend I can pin it down to one specific thing because the truth is it might touch more than one area simultaneously. What I can tell you is that it's going to feel sudden even though it's been building for a long time. It's like a dam breaking. The pressure has been accumulating quietly, and when it finally gives way, the rush of it will feel overwhelming at first. But Once the initial surge passes, what's left is open space, room to breathe, room to build something new on ground that's finally been cleared. The second layer is internal, and honestly, this is the one that matters more, because the external shift is just the catalyst. The real transformation is happening inside you. You're shedding a version of yourself that you've outgrown, and that process, while ultimately liberating, can feel like grief. It can feel like loss. You might mourn the person you were, even if that person was exhausted and undervalued and quietly desperate for change, because that person was familiar. That person was safe in their suffering. And there's a strange comfort in knowing exactly how much something hurts versus stepping into the unknown where the pain might be different, or, and this is the part that scares you most, where there might not be any pain at all. You're not sure you trust a life that doesn't ask you to bleed for it. And that belief right there is the one that's being dismantled. You deserve ease. I want you to sit with that sentence for a second. You deserve ease, not as a reward for suffering, not as something you earn after enough hard work or sacrifice or proving yourself worthy. Ease as a birthright. Ease as a natural state. Ease as something that was always meant for you but got buried under layers of conditioning that told you life had to be hard to be meaningful, that rest was laziness, that wanting more made you ungrateful, that asking for help was a burden. None of that is true. It was never true. And the fact that you're beginning to see through those beliefs, even if it's just a crack right now, even if the light coming through is thin and tentative, that's the beginning of everything. There's someone connected to this shift. I keep feeling the presence of someone who has been on the periphery of your life, not fully in it, not fully out of it. This person carries weight of their own. And part of the reason the dynamic between you has been so complicated is that neither of you has been able to show up fully while still carrying your separate burdens. What's interesting is that the news coming your way is going to change the dynamic between you and this person in a way that neither of you anticipated. It might bring you closer. It might create a necessary distance. It might redefine the entire nature of what you are to each other. But whatever it does, it's going to be honest. And honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, is always a form of love. I also want to speak to something quieter that I'm picking up. There's a dream you've been sitting on, something you've wanted to pursue, create, or become, and you've been telling yourself it's too late, too impractical, too risky, too self-indulgent. You've been filing it away in the someday drawer, which we both know is often just another word for never, but this dream keeps resurfacing. It shows up in strange moments when you're driving alone, when you're lying in bed just before sleep, when you hear a certain song or see a certain image that triggers a feeling you can't quite explain. That feeling is not nostalgia. It's not fantasy. It's recognition. It's your future self reaching back through time and tapping you on the shoulder saying, don't forget about this. This part matters. The news that's coming is going to crack open a door for that dream, not fling it wide open. That would be too easy. And easy isn't how you grow. But crack it open enough for you to see light on the other side, enough for you to realize it's not as impossible as you convinced yourself it was. And here's the critical thing. When that door cracks open, you have to move. Not perfectly, not with a full plan, not with certainty. You just have to move. Take one step. Send the message. Have the conversation. Do the thing you've been rehearsing in your mind for longer than you'd ever admit to anyone. Because the universe doesn't just hand you moments like this on repeat. When it opens a window, it expects you to at least lean out and look. I feel something else here that I want to address, and it's a little more delicate. There's a part of you that has been struggling with your own worthiness. Not in a dramatic, obvious way. You probably wouldn't even use that word. But underneath your confidence, underneath your capability, underneath the way you show up in the world, there's a quiet whisper that says, what if I'm not enough? What if all of this is a fluke? What if the other shoe is about to drop? What if the good things coming are meant for someone else, and I'm just temporarily standing in their spot? I want you to know that voice is lying. It's not protecting you. It's not keeping you safe. It's keeping you small. And the reason it's gotten so loud lately is precisely because you're about to step into something big. The resistance always intensifies right before the breakthrough. That's not a sign that something's wrong. That's a sign that something's working. What you're about to receive, and I use that word intentionally, receive, not chase, not earn, not fight for what you're about to receive, is going to require you to expand your capacity for good. That might sound strange, but think about it. If you've spent most of your life managing difficulty, navigating conflict, absorbing other people's pain, then your emotional infrastructure is built for hard things. It's not necessarily built for abundance, for joy, for someone looking at you with no agenda other than genuine love. You might actually feel uncomfortable when good things start landing. You might try to sabotage them, question them, look for the hidden catch. I'm asking you right now to resist that impulse. Let the good thing be good. Let the unexpected blessing be a blessing. Don't interrogate it into oblivion. Just let it land. There's a memory that keeps surfacing as I sit with your energy. I can't tell if it's from your childhood or your early adulthood, but there was a moment, a specific moment when you made a silent promise to yourself. It wasn't dramatic. No one else witnessed it. But in that moment, you decided something about how your life was going to go. You drew a line. You set a standard. You said, I will not become this, or I will make sure I always do that. And you've held on to that promise with an almost fierce devotion, even when it made things harder for you, even when it would have been easier to let it go. Here's what I want you to know. That promise is about to be honored in a way you never expected. Not by you, you've already done your part, but by life itself. By the circumstances that are assembling around you right now, quietly, deliberately, like pieces of a puzzle finally finding their place. I want to say something about patience too, because I think you need to hear it. You've been patient for a long time, possibly too long. And I know there have been moments when your patience felt less like a virtue and more like a cage, when you wondered if waiting was really wisdom or just fear dressed up in spiritual clothing. I understand that, and I want to validate it. Not all patience is noble. Sometimes patience is just avoidance wearing a halo. But your patience, the specific kind you've practiced, the kind that held steady even when everything in you wanted to run or scream or burn it all down, that patience was purposeful. It was strategic, even if it didn't feel that way. You were being held in place, not because you were stuck, but because the timing wasn't ready, and now it is. The ground beneath you is finally solid enough to hold what's being built. If you've been following along with the messages here on Mary's Angel Tarot, you might have noticed a pattern in what keeps coming through for you. There's a thread that runs through everything, and that thread is this. You are someone who was built for more than what you've been living. Not because your life hasn't mattered, it has, profoundly, but because there are rooms inside you that haven't been opened yet. Capacities you haven't tested, versions of yourself you haven't met, and this next chapter is going to introduce you to parts of yourself that you didn't know existed. Parts that are braver, bolder, softer, and more unapologetically alive than anything you've shown the world so far. The shaking I mentioned at the beginning, I want to come back to that because I don't want you to carry fear about it. The shaking isn't destruction, it's awakening. Think about what happens when you've been sitting in one position for too long and your leg falls asleep. When the blood starts flowing back, it doesn't feel pleasant. It tingles, it stings, it aches. But that discomfort is the sign of life returning. That's what this is. Life is returning to parts of you that went numb. Parts that you shut down because feeling them fully was too much at the time. You did what you had to do to survive, but now you're not just surviving anymore. You're being asked to live, really live. And that transition from surviving to living is one of the most disorienting, beautiful, terrifying things a human being can go through. There's a conversation you've been avoiding. I feel it sitting in your chest like a stone. You know the one I mean. It's with someone specific, about something specific. And every time you think about having it, your stomach tightens and your mind starts constructing escape routes. But here's what your spirit already knows. That conversation is the key. Not the key to fixing the other person or getting the outcome you want. The key to freeing yourself. Because the words you've been holding back are taking up space inside you. They're occupying emotional real estate that could be used for something generative, something new, something that actually feeds you. And every day you don't say them, they get a little heavier, a little more calcified, a little more embedded in your body as tension, as fatigue, as that low-grade anxiety that follows you around like a shadow you can't shake. You don't have to have the conversation today, but you need to start moving toward it. Even writing the words down for yourself, just getting them out of your body and onto paper would begin to shift something. What I see for you on the other side of all of this is something I almost hesitate to describe because I don't want it to sound like a fantasy. But it's real, it's grounded, it's earned. I see stability, not the rigid white-knuckle kind, but the kind that comes from finally standing on ground that belongs to you. I see relationships that mirror your depth instead of draining it. I see creative expression that flows instead of being forced. I see mornings where you wake up and the first thought isn't dread or obligation, but genuine curiosity about what the day might hold. I see you laughing more. And not the polite performative laughter you sometimes offer in social situations, but the deep, body-shaking, tear-producing kind that comes from a place of real, uncomplicated joy. That version of your life isn't far away. It's not a distant horizon. It's right here, right on the other side of the door that's about to crack open. But I need to be honest with you about one more thing. The transition won't be seamless. There will be a period, a brief but intense one, where you feel like you're between worlds. The old life hasn't fully released you, and the new one hasn't fully formed. During that time, you might feel disoriented. You might question everything. You might have moments where you want to go back to what was familiar simply because it was known, even if it was painful. When that happens, and it will, I need you to remember this moment. Remember how it felt to read these words and know, somewhere deeper than logic, that they were speaking directly to your situation. That knowing is your anchor. Hold on to it. It will carry you through the in-between. There's something about your hands that keeps coming through. I don't know if this is literal or metaphorical, but your hands are significant in what's unfolding. Maybe you work with your hands. Maybe you're being called to create something tangible. Maybe there's a gesture you need to make, extending your hand towards someone in reconciliation, or pulling your hand back from something that's been draining you. Pay attention to your hands in the coming period. Notice what they're reaching for. Notice what they're holding on to. Notice what they're ready to release. Your body often knows before your mind does, and your hands are the part of your body that interacts most directly with the world. They're your instruments of change. I also want to leave you with this. The version of you that existed before this message is not the version of you that will walk away from it. Something has shifted. Maybe it's small. Maybe it's a single grain of sand moving from one side of the scale to the other, but that grain was enough to tip the balance. You came here carrying something, and you're going to leave here carrying something different. Lighter, perhaps. Or not lighter, but clearer. Like looking through water that's been murky for months, and suddenly seeing all the way to the bottom. What you find down there might surprise you. It might not be what you expected, but it will be true. And at this point in your journey, truth, real, unvarnished, unflinching truth is the most valuable thing you could possibly receive. The strong news I spoke about at the beginning, it's already on its way. You can't rush it and you can't prevent it. What you can do is prepare the ground, clean the space, let go of one thing that you know in your honest heart no longer serves you. That single act of release will signal to the universe that you're ready, that you're not just waiting passively, but actively participating in your own unfolding. And when the news arrives, when it shakes the foundation of what you thought you knew, you'll find that beneath the rubble is bedrock. Solid, ancient, unshakable bedrock that has been there all along, waiting for the flimsy structures built on top of it to finally fall away so it could be revealed. You are not falling apart, you are falling into place. And the difference between those two things is everything. I want you to carry that with you. Not as a mantra, not as a bumper sticker, but as a lived truth that you let seep into the way you move through your days. You are falling into place. Every confusing moment, every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer, every door that closed in your face, it was all part of a pattern too large for you to see from where you were standing. But you're being lifted now. The vantage point is changing. And from this new height, you're going to look back at your life and finally understand why it had to happen the way it did. Not all of it will make sense immediately. Some of it won't make sense for a long time. But enough of it will click into focus that you'll feel something release inside your chest, something old, something heavy, something you've been holding without even knowing you were holding it. And in that release, you'll find the peace you've been searching for. Not the temporary peace that comes from distraction or avoidance, but the kind that settles into your bones and stays. You're ready for this. Even if you don't feel ready, you are. Your whole life has been preparation for what's coming next. Every heartbreak taught you resilience. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every moment of loneliness taught you how to sit with yourself without running. And now all of those lessons are about to converge into something that makes your past feel not like a wound, but like a curriculum. You graduated a long time ago. You just didn't realize the diploma was waiting for you on the other side of this moment. So breathe, trust what's coming, even if you can't see it yet. And know, truly know, in the deepest, most unshakable part of yourself that you are being guided, protected, and profoundly, achingly loved by something greater than you can comprehend. This isn't the end of your story. This is the page where everything turns. All right. Thank you so much for watching Mary's Angel Tarot. Take care of your energy, and I'll see you in the next reading. Bye.